I'm out in the garden today doing some harvesting, and I thought I would bring you guys along with me. Now, we are just a couple weeks out from our estimated first frost date, and with that, a lot of this is going to have to be pulled within the next couple weeks anyway, but we're gonna see what we can get done today. Not gonna lie, I am ready to just kind of be done with the garden. At this point in the season, it is looking like a total mess, and I'm kind of just over it. We did plant a small fall garden, but that's always super manageable, and it's just nowhere near the size of what we had throughout the summer, so much easier to maintain. Many of our peppers this year did not thrive. The ones we planted in ground did much better than the ones planted in the raised beds. Usually it's actually the opposite of this, and I'm pretty confident it's because they were planted a week apart. The ones in the raised bed were planted a week earlier, and we had a sudden drop in temperature, which pepper plants do not like, and it took them some time after that to recoup. Some of them just never did. For bell peppers this year, I planted both California Wonder and King of the North to see if one of the varieties would do better for me, but they seem to have produced about the same. There are still a ton of bell peppers on these plants, so what I'm harvesting, we will eat some of fresh, and then the rest will be frozen for meals throughout the fall and winter. And then I'll just be watching our temperatures as we approach our estimated first frost date, so I can pull what's left before it hits. This pepperoncini plant is just loaded, but I'm gonna leave these and see if we can get them to ripen at all within the next couple weeks. So this is real life. This is what our cucumbers look like. I have been meaning to pull them out for about 2 weeks now. They got hit with powdery mildew pretty bad, which in my experience seems to happen more with the pickling cucumbers, which is what these are. These are early fortune, I think, and we had a great harvest from them, but they are definitely done. The zinnias are just about the only thing in the garden that are still looking pretty, and these two are some of my favorite varieties. These bush beans have been very prolific, but I find them just much easier to miss and harder in general to harvest than pole beans. So while they are still loaded, many of the beans have just gone a little bit too long, so it's likely that the pigs will be getting a nice treat out of these. I am just at a point where I am ready to pull out all of these bush beans. I have mentioned I don't typically do bush beans. I haven't done them in years. Typically I do pole beans, but for a variety of reasons I decided to do bush beans this year, and I don't know. It is just a jungle. There's still lots of beans on here, so I'm trying to get as much as I can, but I'm kind of over it. So I didn't grow a whole lot of San Marzano this year. I think I only grew 2 plants, but both of them are just loaded. So what I'm going to be doing is pulling off all the ripe ones, any that are almost ripe or even just blushing, and then that way they can just continue to ripen inside, and any of the green ones will have a chance to start to blush before our estimated first frost date, and then I'll just pull them and they will continue to ripen inside. It didn't hit me until our tomatoes began to ripen just how many orange tomatoes I planted this year. We grew a lot of Dr. Witchy's and a lot of Thorburns terracotta, which I'm not upset about, but all of my tomato products that I canned this year are probably going to be looking a little bit more on the orange side. As I mentioned earlier, we are only a couple weeks out from our first estimated frost date, so I am harvesting anything that is ripe or even blushing so they can finish ripening inside. Hopefully that will give the remaining green tomatoes time to blush before our first frost, and then they can also continue to ripen inside because there are still a ton of tomatoes on these plants. I pulled in about 75 pounds of tomatoes today, and most of these tomatoes are going to be added to my growing collection of frozen tomatoes until I have time to turn them into sauce. But I will also be making some more salsas and hopefully some roasted tomato soup and tomato jam for the pantry shelf as well with these fresh tomatoes. This right here is an Aunt Ruby's German green, so it's actually a green tomato, and I'm glad that I tagged everything because I probably wouldn't have grabbed this otherwise. I wasn't sure if I was going to pull my onions today, but I decided that I'm going to go ahead and do it. I've mentioned in previous videos, we got a late start to the garden this year, so our onions, it's not the best year that we've had. But this is kind of what they averaged out at. I'm going to go ahead and let these cure for a couple weeks, and then we'll put them in storage. I am going to start on pulling potatoes. Now, I don't think I'm going to get all that done today. We've got 5 rows in our in-ground garden area, and then we have a raised bed out front that we have some warba potatoes in, so those are not storage potatoes. And that was a later planting. So I'm going to leave those ones for sure, and I'm just going to start in the in-ground area and see what we can get done. For potatoes, I planted completely different than I typically do this year. I'm not sure why I do this, but instead of trying a small amount a new way, I just took a risk and did them all differently than I normally would. So instead of hilling them like I typically would, we just planted them a foot deep and left them. Luckily, so far, I'm really happy with the results. In years past, we have had some issues with potato scab, and in looking for some solutions, one recommendation I found was to give them a dose of molasses water, which was just a cup of molasses in a 5-gallon bucket of water. I added a splash of that for every potato I planted, and so far I have not seen one potato with potato scab, so I am thrilled about that. This year we planted Norcoda russets, Cyglend, feel free to correct me on my pronunciation, and also some banana fingerlings. We also planted some warba after pulling out our garlic, but those will be for fresh eating only. They are not a storage potato. So altogether, this should give us a year's worth of potatoes easily. I ended up only getting 1 row harvested, and I didn't get a final clip to share with you. The sun was starting to go down, and I needed to get some of our plums harvested. It has not been a great plum year for us. So far, I've just been harvesting as I can tackle them, but only 3 of our 6 plum trees really produced this year. We pretty much skipped spring this year, and a lot of our fruit trees and berries did not seem to like that. The exception is our apple trees, which are just loaded this year. Thank you so much for spending your afternoon harvesting with me, and I will see you in the next video.